I know what you're thinking. How could Jimmy possibly stand a chance against Rick? Rick is the smartest man in the universe. He can fight gods, he can enslave whole worlds, he can topple empires, and he can destroy centralized banking. But what if I told you that Jimmy is responsible for the death of a god? He got the entire adult population of Earth to be enslaved, and he caused the candy addiction epidemic that would make Ronald Reagan envious. Most people can still remember all that Rick has done, as his TV show, Rick and Morty, is a series that is ongoing and has even outlasted Jimmy Neutron's 4-year run. Some of you might need a rundown on Rick's accomplishments from the first 3 seasons, so I will go over 4. Enslaving the whole population of Milkazorpians, defeating the devil, having relations with a hive mind, creating a microverse, creating life on the microverse, and then enslaving that life, and then finally toppling 2 empires at the same time. But what does Jimmy manage to do? Well, you might be thinking, an 11-year-old, he can't be that bad. Executing Santa Claus, unleashing a horde of aliens on Earth, then tying their leader to a rocket Jesus style, tried to make his friend Carl abort his own child, choke slammed the baby. I'll leave this one up for interpretation. Alright, enough said. Time to compare some stats, starting off with Rick. Strength isn't a trait typically associated with Rick, but this doesn't stop him from being a man of action. However, for the sake of this fight, neither participant will be allowed to boost their stats with any technology or gear. Perception is one of Rick's weakest skills. In fact, he's even been tricked by furries and relies heavily on technology to help him perceive the world. Typically he's drunk, so this doesn't really help him in the fight. Rick is surprisingly resilient for a man in his 70s. He is able to go rounds with a hive mind, and is able to get his arm ripped off and replace it within minutes. Surprisingly, one of Rick's strong suits. Rick is very charismatic and is able to seduce various species of aliens, although I doubt charisma will be playing a big role in this fight. Probably the only skill stat of Rick's that is incredibly shaky. Intelligence is something that has grown over the seasons of Rick and Morty. In the first season, he struggled to get a seat past an overglorified airport. Eventually, he was able to take on 2 empires at the same time, but in later seasons, he got tricked by anime characters. It's okay. Yeah, one of Rick's lowest skill stat. Most of his struggles are caused by low IQ troglodytes in his family and Jerry. Jimmy doesn't go into this fight looking as impressive as Rick, but with Jimmy's lacks in age and experience, he makes up for in abilities. Jimmy can't even bench a 45-pound bar. Very disrespectful. He's lucky he even gets a 2. For perception, Jimmy gets a perfect score, as he has the Brain Blast ability. This ability allows him to become temporarily omniscient. Even without this ability, Jimmy is able to analyze the chemical makeup of almost any object. You wanna know one thing Rick can't do? He can't survive the vacuum of space without a spacesuit. Solar radiation, extreme temperature changes, friction, changes in pressure. None of this affects Jimmy or his hair. He gets a perfect score. Charisma is one of Jimmy's weakest stats. His own friends and family have been known to turn on him even when he was in the right. Deadlock with Rick in terms of intelligence. Jimmy's intelligence is much more consistent throughout the series, and he has even been able to do much of the same things Rick has, such as creating portals, making spaceships out of trash, going into dreams, and toppling empires. Jimmy could be more agile if his head weren't so large and his hair always in the way. Just look at his mom, he's clearly a lucky kid. If you believe that I'm giving Jimmy too much credit for his endurance, yeah, I'm with you there. That's only because of the system that I'm using for the stats, the Fallout system. Yeah, there's kind of 2 kinds of endurance. There's combat endurance and environmental endurance. And Jimmy's endurance in terms of environment is really high, but because of how the GURP system works, I have to be really lenient with him. But if this was in terms of combat endurance, yeah, his combat endurance would be at a 2. The only way I see these 2 finding themselves in a confrontation would be if they're fighting over some sort of material. We've seen in the past that Jimmy gets very aggressive when it comes to rare materials, such as space rubies. So let's say there's a massive asteroid made entirely out of antimatter, and it's in a superposition existing both in Jimmy's and Rick's dimensions. Rick is up late drinking when suddenly he gets an alarm, so he packs up Morty and blasts off. Meanwhile, Jimmy is still looking for the planet where he met that green alien chick, but instead of fighting her so he can brain blast all over her, he discovers a straight asteroid. So he go ask his parents if he can go visit the asteroid, is immediately denied, but he's a Sigma male, so he just blasts off anyways. If I had the money, skills, and time, I would probably pay someone to animate this for me, but since I'm just a guy on a laptop, posting for 5 people I'm just gonna tell you the two different kinds of endings I see happening. Ending 1, fight to the death. The most probable ending, since Jimmy would be so aggressive and Rick is always willing to kill someone, I can easily see these two fighting to the death, but there is a major difference in the type of inventions they both make. The type of inventions Jimmy usually creates aren't meant to harm anyone, but in the end, they always do. Nanobots, clones, efficient restaurants, everything starts off innocent enough, but everything turns into a world-ending event. Rick's inventions are more refined, typically doing what they were made to do, but he still has those moments where his inventions go bad, such as the virus that makes Jessica in love with Morty, Project Phoenix, and segregating the Clay People's society. So, in a fight to the death, Rick wins. However, Rick doesn't always fight to the death, and Jimmy, well, usually doesn't fight to the death. Outcome 2, fight to submission. Most of Jimmy's inventions aren't fatal to the target, but they can still be used to put someone into a submission. And since Rick doesn't always carry all of his inventions with him, and usually he only has his portal gun, whatever augmentations he has, and his car, he's at a disadvantage when it comes to invention power. Meanwhile, Jimmy has his little portal cube which allows him to carry almost all of his inventions with him, and there is one more important thing I haven't mentioned yet, their sidekicks. Rick has two sidekicks, Morty and his car. However, how useful Morty is typically depends on what Rick has to offer. And since Rick doesn't always have a lot of inventions with him, he's usually just a screaming meatbag. His spaceship car has been shown to have sentience, but it's usually deactivated, so it won't be a major factor in this fight. Meanwhile, Jimmy has his dog, Goddard, which is practically immortal. He can shoot lasers, dance, seduce alien dogs, and he can explode himself and put himself back together. So in a fight to submission, Jimmy will win, for he has more technology and has a better sidekick. So, this is how the battle will go down. Rick and Morty are on the northern hemisphere of the asteroid, meanwhile, Jimmy's in the south. They're both having trouble mining the antimatter, because there's only a few spots that are soft enough to mine with regular matter. After weeks of being on the asteroid, they both realize that they're heading straight for a black hole. Eventually, they discover each other's ships, filled to the brim with antimatter, and think to themselves, hey, I should steal that. They catch each other in the act and begin the battle. Jimmy sends in Goddard to explode Rick's ship. Turns out Rick was making antimatter weapons the entire time, and unleashes a fury onto Jimmy Neutron. Jimmy Neutron takes a moment to brain blast. So, Rick blasts out Jimmy's brains.